Good afternoon and welcome to the March 7th meeting of the Housing Authority. May we have the roll call, please?
Authority members: Devine.
Here.
Garpetian.
Here.
Kelly. Najarian.
Here.
Parazian.
Here.
Chair Sinanian.
Here. What's next on the agenda?
Report of the clerk. The agenda for the March 7, 2017 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on Thursday, March 2nd, 2017 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Okay.
Next item is approval of minutes.
Do we have a motion for approval?
I'll approve.
Do we have a second?
I'll move the approval.
Second.
Thank you. Any objections? Without objections, the minutes are adopted as submitted. What's next on the agenda?
Next item on the agenda is oral communications. However, no cards were submitted for this portion.
Okay. Well, next.
Any staff or
Staff
authority
comment?
member comments?
There appear to be none. I have some comments. So today is election day, not municipal elections, but City of Los Angeles and county elections. And we have Measure H on the local ballot. And I hope that everyone goes out and votes as they see fit on this measure. And I will say that this measure has the potential to impact our ability to deal with the homelessness problem, which is an increasingly problematic issue for all of us. So draw your own conclusions and vote. Also, since I see that our housing staff is here, I did want to ask, as I'm meeting a lot of residents in the last 2 months especially, but the issue of not necessarily not receiving the Section 8 voucher, but receiving the voucher and then being unable to find a landlord that's willing to rent or a landlord that's willing to be part of the Section 8 program. This issue is coming up over and over, and I'm hearing more and more about it. Anyone care to comment and talk about this? Explain what's going on?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the Housing Authority. We've heard some of that as well. We've been pulling slowly in small increments people off the waiting list for Section 8. We've been offering them vouchers, and they are then charged with going out and securing a unit to contract up. We have heard that, and we do understand that times now are much harder than they have been in the past, and that some landlords are reluctant to enter into a Section 8 rental agreement where the rent standard might be lower than what they might be able to achieve on the market. To address that, twice this current year, twice in 2016, we raised our Section 8 payment standards to try to assist tenants in their search for units. We're limited in how much we can increase those payment standards, but we have done it twice in 1 year, which even that is a step we haven't taken in a long while. We don't feel that it's necessarily all the way up to market rate levels, but it certainly is better than it was before and provides some options to residents. We do understand that there are some people that are having trouble contracting up, and for those that do come back to us and let us know that they are struggling in identifying a unit, we give them the full amount of our allotment of time to be able to contract up that is dictated to us by HUD. So we can go out as far as 6 months for them, allowing them to go out and find a suitable unit to contract.
Okay, thank you. Those are good explanations. So this is happening, and you said that we are increasing the Section 8 payment standards, but we're limited. Obviously, we are. It's a limited pot of money, but where do we come up with the additional funds to increase the standards? Does HUD index these numbers or somehow keep up with the CPI? I mean, how does this happen?
We hope that HUD honors those increases.
Otherwise,
is what we do.
So we chip in from our own funds and wait?
No, we look to HUD to chip in for those increases. For a while, HUD was going around to agencies about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and saying that agencies need to look at increasing their payment standards more regularly. But at the same time, they say, but be careful, because when you do increase your payment standards, and if there ever are funding deficits in the future, this could impact your ability to serve all of your clients. So when I say that it's a difficult decision to raise your payment standards, you are limited. You're limited in that you're hoping HUD acknowledges your higher standards and higher costs per unit that you're going to incur. And those all don't come along online in month number one. One person's rent is up, and the new standard is set in month one. Another group of people come up, and so it rolls in over time. And you hope when HUD sets their budget, they set it at an appropriate level that recognizes your total cost increases.
So these adjustments that we undergo they're on real rolling basis, and they're periodic. They happen from year to year, or whenever we can make
the
it
rent
happen,
increases
right?
happen on a monthly basis as people go through their annual recertification, or if they're a brand new person off the list, they're out there looking for a unit.
And so we fund them hoping that HUD's going to honor. I mean,
Correct.
So that they reimburse us that money. Is that how it goes?
Correct. And that in the next year's budget, that they'll be able to reimburse us and pay us accordingly moving forward as well.
Have they ever not honored it? Has that happened?
No, but we've had years of decreased funding.
Sure.
If you recall, from 2011 to up until 2014, we had funding that was decreasing on a regular basis where vouchers were frozen.
And when that's the case, do we? And I assume maybe we've adjusted someone's rent and they don't honor. They in fact don't increase, but they decrease. How do we respond to that?
They don't necessarily look at the payment standard. They'll just look at your budget. So if our payment standards equate to $1 million worth of costs, and they come in and say, we're only funding you $900,000, there's a $100,000 gap that you have to make up. In the past, we've made up our gaps by freezing and deactivating vouchers from the waiting list that were turned into us rather than pull someone off the waiting list. We didn't have to terminate families. We just kept those vouchers deactivated until we got to a point where funding was increased, and we've slowly been building that up until we'll see what 2017 and 2018 brings us.
And how many, do we have any deactivated vouchers now?
We have a number of vouchers that are not being utilized, yes.
Do we know what that number is?
I'd say the number is about 30 to 40.
And are these deactivated in the sort of the absolute sense, or are they just or are some of them at least vouchers that folks are out there trying to find apartments?
Well, without getting into too much of detail, the city attorney has cautioned us in the past. So we're allowed to contract up to 1592 vouchers. That's our allocation. It's been in our allocation for a long number of years. And we don't expect it to increase anytime soon. But then we're also given a budget. That budget they give us might only be able to support 1560 vouchers a year,
right,
instead of the 1592. So they'll say, we didn't take away your vouchers, but you didn't fund us for the full funding. Right. So right now we're about 1539 that are active vouchers, and about another 27 people that have been pulled from the list and are out there looking that we intend to honor their vouchers as long as they can contract up within the 6 months. What we will do is we will then start to look at what our HUD budget's going to be. And when I had said earlier that we raised the payment standards, but we had some limits, we had to sit and analyze the payment standards that we were proposing to increase. And if HUD did not give us full funding on our budget authority, how would we pay for that difference? And we took a look and said we can absorb so much of a budget hit, reduction from HUD, by using so much of our admin fund reserves that we've been banking over the years, that we are allowed to use and we've used in the past when we've had deficits in our budget. So you don't want to sit there and say, let's go raise our payment standards to complete market rent. Everybody will have an ability to compete for a unit. We wouldn't have the money to be able to backfill that in a budget deficit time. So you have to be strategic in what you do. Sometimes you're gambling, but you gamble knowing that you have some reserves to be able to pay for that gap if HUD doesn't.
And how much are our admin fund reserves?
A little over $5 million.
That's a healthy amount, right?
That's a very good amount of the agencies in Southern California that we always talk to. When we throw out that number, everyone is very impressed. And that comes from saving on our admin costs over the years. And that's money that HUD can't touch so far.
So
They
the
tried.
folks, the 27, if I remember correctly, the 27 folks who are out there with vouchers right now looking for funding, looking to fund their vouchers, and at the expiration of the 6-month period, they're out of luck. They're done. They lose their voucher.
Correct.
And is there something that the city does to, other than help them find a home? Do we consider using the admin fund reserves to maybe help them out, or are we precluded from doing so somehow legally?
You're precluded from using your reserves to artificially boost your voucher levels.
Okay.
Because then HUD is on the hook in trying to fund. Then agencies can come back to HUD and say, listen, I'm at 1,600 vouchers. And they'll say, yeah, but you're only authorized for 1,590. You used reserves to add additional vouchers on the street that we don't recognize. So you're precluded from being able to do that. You could use it for budget shortfalls on the HAP, but you do it after the fact, not in advance. So for those that don't contract up, we put them back on the waiting list in their position. And we look at
so they
assisting them.
they don't just automatically
I take that back. I'm sorry. If they're canceled, they've had their opportunity to go out and contract.
Well, that's tragic. Considering most of these, well, all of them are waiting for the last 16 years now.
Yeah. But so far, a majority of people are. It's taking longer, but a majority of them are coming back and contracting. So in the past, if it's taken them 2 months, we're now seeing 4 months, 5 months.
And you said the city does help them look for a place, or no, we don't? We just don't?
We do have a very small listing. We have landlords that do like the Section 8 program, so when they do have a vacancy, they'll tell us, and we'll put it on a vacancy list, and people will come in and ask. But then what you really have is it's a very limited number, so you have a large number of people fighting for one vacant unit, trying to get there.
Is there anything precluding the city from using other reserve funds to help out those people that have vouchers but are just unable to find a home? We can verify that. Is there a legal preclusion to that, or no?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know.
Mike, can we have the city attorney look into that?
Sure.
And last question is, what do we hear from DC about, with the change in administration? And I'm guessing the HUD is just like any other agency there.
Yeah,
I mean, to the extent that they're not touching entitlements and they are looking to expand military spending by $54 billion and still somehow not increase the deficit and cut taxes, it would.
The money has to come from somewhere.
The presumption is going to be they're going to gut everything that isn't one of those three programs.
So, I mean, do we have indication that they're going to do that? Or
All we have are the pronouncements from the president and the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development at this point.
Yeah, we've been talking to all our sources, and they've indicated, as Mr. Cho has said, that the $54 billion increase to benefit defense will come at the cost of a $54 billion decrease for non-defense spending. Whether or not it's just prorated across all departments or certain departments will take higher hits than others, we don't know. At the end of March, the president's going to release a very brief budget detail. It probably won't touch on particulars. In April, the different appropriation committees will start to do some work. We don't expect to hear back on any type of plan until sometime in September, over the summer, as to maybe specific details with regards to the 2018 HUD budget. And that doesn't even address the 2017 HUD budget, which is operating under a continuing resolution.
So we could be, are we funding Section 8 today, hoping that they're going to give us money tomorrow, but they may turn around and say no, or are those funds already committed? They will pay us for the for this current fiscal year.
We don't know what HUD will fund us. So we could be operating at a deficit.
So they could,
when they finally come around and announce numbers, and then
even for this current fiscal year, they could.
Correct.
They could
right now, it's under a continuing resolution.
So could they ultimately totally gut the Section 8 program? I mean, could we face a catastrophe?
I think that they've all expressed concern and they realize the benefits of the Section 8 program. I think what it'll do is have major impacts to HUD as a whole, whether or not those impacts first go to Section 8 or maybe to home, maybe to CDBG, maybe to continuum of care, maybe to public housing. That remains to be seen.
Or all of the above,
yeah.
to some shotgun approach. I think we probably, the best bet is to expect that you will not see an increase in HUD funding for any of these programs. Best case.
Yeah.
Best case.
We expect a decrease.
Yeah.
And we expect if there is a decrease and HUD has no special award allocations to make up shortfalls, which they have in the past, and we were able to get some funding to make up previous shortfalls that they provided us later on, then we would rely on our admin reserves. And that's why our reserves are there for times like this.
Okay. Any questions from my colleagues? Yes.
I think in all your questions, and they're very valid questions, I think at the heart of that is a request that we put this on a future agenda.
Absolutely.
And give us a broader, what I'd like to see would be a broad overview of the Section 8 system, including the availability of rental units, what it means for a landlord to make a unit available. I know there's inspections involved. Some of the pitfalls of that system. I understand landlords occasionally demand more rent than they're entitled to lease to a Section 8 tenant, as well as perhaps this larger issue that we're all dealing with the limited Section 8 funding. Is there any funding mechanism that we can explore that would permit the city to develop its own housing assistance program, perhaps parallel to a Section 8 program, and maybe not as extensive, not as deeply funded, but I mean, there isn't a day that goes by where I have a crying resident at the front and their rent is up $200 and they have no place to go. And I think it's incumbent on council to start discussing these issues before a certain ballot measure comes before us and ties our hands completely. And they point to the council and say, well, you did nothing all this time. You didn't come up with any out-of-the-box ideas. We used to have redevelopment set-aside money where we'd get 20% of funding into some sort of affordable housing pool. So let us know how other cities do it. I'm sure there are some very progressive cities that maybe have something similar to what I'm talking about, and then that's something we can discuss maybe and see what the implications would be.
Sure, we can do that. Some of it might be an independent update. Some of it might be in conjunction with our affordable housing strategies discussion that going to be coming back to you, the 8-point strategy. And there are some things that we haven't touched upon where our staff has been looking at ways to incentivize the program, both without costs, but to make it appealing to landlords, and then with some type of financial incentives, very limited as to what HUD allows us to do. So we can talk about things like that.
I think that'd be a great discussion for us to have.
But it is a little bit premature to start trying to plan for a budget. We can only just kind of operate as is right now, but we can certainly have those other discussions.
Well, yeah, I guess since this problem doesn't seem to be any closer to going away, in fact, it's going to escalate. I think we want to be ready. We want to understand what the options are and how we can prepare best. This is like any other, just like any other contingency that we prepare for. And it's the same type of thing. We have to know how we're going to address this issue because it seems to be getting worse by the day. Councilmember Garbetian.
Yeah, I just want to mention that this housing crisis is not going away, and ever since I got elected, I've been talking about this issue, and it's not a new discussion. That's why I brought up the idea of rent stabilization ordinance, and I think we have some material that is going to come public, a draft of that ordinance that I'd like everybody to take a look at and give their input in, because if we don't do anything, you can't expect much from the community to support us in the future for other ballot measures. So, but this issue has been there. I mean, I've been talking about it for the last 2 years.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Parazian.
Okay, and about those 27 vouchers that people couldn't use, and because the time limit, so the rest, is it going to go to the others from the waiting list? Maybe some of them from the waiting list can find just
No, we pulled those 27 vouchers a couple of months ago, and we've been processing them. So what we've decided is that we'll honor them up until the 6-month period. if they do contract out. HUD can step in if some type of budget resolution comes and is decided upon. HUD could step in and say to all agencies, no, if there's a voucher that's outstanding that hasn't contracted up, don't honor it. They haven't given that direction. So we plan on allowing those 27 to go out and try and secure a unit. If something comes back and gets returned to us, we won't reissue it. It'll just stay in the deactivation file because of these budget concerns. But what we didn't want to do was have a case where someone waited so long, finally gets a voucher, and then it gets taken away. We didn't feel that was fair. So we're going to let them go ahead through their process and try and contract out.
Last question: How large is our Section 8 budget? What is the total universe of money that,
including vouchers and our own vouchers and ports that come in? It's about 25
is there an
million.
additional expense for the ports? Well, I guess since they're here, we should. Yeah, both categories, both local vouchers and the ports.
About 25 million combined.
And I assume ours is about half, a little more than half. A little more than half.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
But for those ports, remember, we get reimbursed then a month later from those agencies that they're from.
Right. I'm just thinking, how much money would it take to replace the funds that are making the Section 8 program possible? So the answer is about $25 million.
Correct. If you want to try and serve vouchers and ports. If you're just looking at Glendale's vouchers, then as we said, it's about 13, 14.
Right. I'm talking about people who live in Glendale on Section 8. So it is both the locals and the ports. So it's $25 million. I got the answer. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. That's all I have. New business? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And we're adjourned at 3:25 p.m. Thank you.